Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 704, 2024 NFL Season Preview. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. How are you?
Not much has changed since the last time we talked less than 24 hours ago.
No, not a tremendous amount. Although I did realize one mistake that I have made, and that relates to a topic we discussed on the last episode. So I got an email from Ticketmaster today.
Oh yeah, what happened?
Telling me that ahead of attending the Oasis concert, I needed to provide them with proof of my disability because I had accidentally bought disabled access tickets.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now what? So now you have no tickets.
No, I mean, I think actually...
Do we have to cut your leg off?
I think fortunately, given that the disabled tag is pretty loosely used, like I looked it up and you can have, not that I'm dismissing it, but like you can be autistic and go in the disabled section. So I think I'm just going to really play up my recent health issues and make it seem that they're going to go on.
Asshole.
They're going to. I would feel really bad if this were in a stadium and it is a seated section. This is in a park, so I'm not taking someone else's disabled access seat. Who knows?
Until you find you have like this amazing little like sectioned off thing. There's like ample space.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, it might get us the comment I made on the last episode of I know I'm prepared for the fact that I'll be 500 meters from the stage. Might be right up front.
But, you might be on the stage.
Yeah. Now we'd like to welcome on our special guests. But no, I'm going to email Ticketmaster about it. In like looking on Reddit, there's been some. Yeah, I'm not the first person to have made this mistake. And there's mixed responses in terms of how it goes when you tell Ticketmaster. A couple people were like, I told Ticketmaster and they immediately canceled my tickets. A few people were like, oh, thanks for telling us. We will make sure that you don't take the space away from someone who needs it. But again, those are more concerns for like a stadium experience. But I'm not going to tell them I'm not disabled. I'm just going to ask.
Well, then you'd be lying.
I'm going to play up my recent health issues and imply that they will be ongoing 11 months from now. Don't know how I made the mistake, though, genuinely. But yeah.
Wow, it's pretty bad. Well, I guess with that, Eddie, are you planning on getting any disabled NFL tickets? I know you like to go to the NFL in London. Are you going to try and double your luck now?
I don't think I'll be going to any of the London games this year. I do at some point want to go to one of the Germany games, just having never done it. Just to kind of experience, see if that's any different to the London experience, having done, been to several of the London games. Obviously, when I'm coming to Arizona, we are going to a game in Phoenix. That might be the only NFL game that I attend this year, but we'll see. You never know. Maybe something will spring up, either another trip or another opportunity. More likely to be one of the London games, but at the moment, I don't have any plans to be in London when those are taking place.
Okay. Well, this is our NFL preview. So right out of the gate, one word team answer. Who wins the Super Bowl?
I'll say the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
I mean,
Wait, that's it. That's all we get. We'll have to see why you are hesitant there towards the end of the podcast. But I'm going Chiefs. And then we can talk so why.
The joint favorites we've picked. We've gone, taken risks here, and we've picked essentially a reproduction of the Super Bowl matchup from last year, and the two joint favorites to be one of the winners.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to get there differently than how you're getting there. So, but I guess with that, we can start our 2024-2025 NFL preview. I was going to start. I love a good stat and a very random, crazy stat. So I've pulled together 9. I should have just done a full 10, but I didn't. I said, fuck 10. I'm going 9.
How about this?
9 stats.
I'll add the 10th. So you do the first 9,
perfect.
and I've got a 10th for us.
Perfect. Okay, so these are stats that had happened last season. So crazy stats from last season that kind of some of them tie into this season. So starting off with the Chiefs. The Chiefs have now won at least one playoff game in each of the last 6 seasons, which is now the second longest streak in NFL history. Can you name who holds the highest streak in NFL history?
The obvious answer, certainly in recent history, is the Patriots.
It is the Patriots. Yeah. They did in 8 straight seasons from 2011 to 2018 seasons. So the Chiefs are getting close to that territory. This one is just a little preview of perhaps how I think of the Jags and maybe the Bills. Since 2022, Trevor Lawrence has 16 lost fumbles, the most in the NFL in the last 2 seasons. He's also committed 38 turnovers, second most in the NFL, behind Josh Allen. So, surprising.
I saw a video today of Josh Allen throwing a boomerang. Like someone had brought a boomerang to the Bills practice facility. And so he had jokingly was threw it, and he actually had a nice throw. It properly whipped around, but it then went and landed on top of their building as it came back. And the top comment was, haters will say that's an interception.
That's pretty good. So Detroit Lions, a lot of people are high on the Detroit Lions this year. 4 different Detroit Lions players scored 10 or more touchdowns. So that is Montgomery, Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta. The only other team to have 4 or more was the Denver Broncos in 2013, and they actually had 5. And all of those players are returning, I think, for the Lions, right? So, oh no, Montgomery isn't.
For a second, I was worried that you were going to try and make me name the players from the 2013 Broncos season. That would have been a
Terrell Davis has got to be on it. No? Or is that too late?
That's too late.
No, Terrell Davis it's too late.
Yeah. It would be...
who would it be? It's got to be
Thomas.
Receivers. Oh, yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders might have been there. That might have been Emmanuel Sanders' time. There were the 2 Thomases, right? One a tight end, one a wide receiver.
Yeah, Demaryius Thomas.
Who was their running back? Trying to think who was the Broncos running back that season.
Their running backs was C.J. Anderson and Monte Ball and Ronnie Hillman.
Because that's O'Shawn. Is that Peyton Manning's first season in Denver? The one where he had the 53
Peyton
touchdowns.
Manning is here. Yep. All right. Next one. This is a little ode to the Eagles and their tush push. The Eagles converted a league-high 73.1% of their 4th down attempts throughout the season. That's the highest single-season conversion rate by any team in the last 40 years. Notable because Kelsey will no longer be on that Eagles team, and he was a huge component of that tush push. So to be determined whether that number gets better or worse. This one is for the LA Rams, who I think, myself included, have finishing high this year. So the LA Rams had 2 players ending with 15, or sorry, I'm going to say this right because it's kind of confusing. 2 players aged 23 years or younger to finish with over 1,300 yards each. So that would be Nakua had 1,500 yards from scrimmage, and Williams had 1,300 yards, 1,350 from scrimmage. The only other teams to do that were the 2008 Steelers and the 1985 Browns. And of course, both of those players are returning with a healthy Cooper Kupp. So that could be an improved offense for them for now. This one is maybe an ode to what we're going to see this year with the Vikings and the Raiders. So the first points on the Week 14, December 10th game between the Vikings and the Raiders occurred with 1:57 left in the fourth quarter. The only other game to have a later first score was in 2007 when the Pittsburgh Steelers made a field goal with 17 seconds left to beat Miami 3-0. Do you think there's going to be much improvement in those Raiders Vikings if they played again this year?
Well, I expect the Raiders to be pretty much the same. I think the Vikings, obviously, from a quarterback standpoint, I mean, I guess Cousins was injured at that point, but I have less hope in them having the occasionally explosive offense that they've had in years past.
Now, these three, I think, are all pretty crazy. Last year, the Texans went from last in their division the year before to then win their division. That is the 21st straight season that a team has gone from last to first to win a division. So over 20 years now in the NFL, there has been a team that has finished last in their division, went on to win it. And I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I have one or two in mind that maybe.
Who are the potential candidates? The Bears finished bottom of their division, so they definitely got a chance. I guess some people who think were the Jets were bottom of their division.
I think no, they were not.
They were not.
The Patriots were.
Oh yeah, true. Well, the Patriots aren't going to do that. Aside,
you have the Bengals finish last. Now I don't predict that they're going to win the division, but there is a chance.
They definitely could. It wouldn't even be surprising, assuming a healthy Burrow season. It wouldn't be.
Titans finished last in the South. That's not going to happen. Patriots finished last in the East. That's not going to happen. The Chargers finished last in the AFC West. They're going to be better, but can they be over the Chiefs is a big question mark. And then in the NFC, you have the Commanders were last. The Cardinals were last. The Bears, like you said, were last. And the Panthers were last.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that wouldn't really surprise you that much would be the Bears, the Bengals, and the Chargers. The Chargers, obviously, I'm assuming, it would be very normal for Jim Harbaugh to have an instant reaction out of his team. He's a coach that usually doesn't hang around for a long period of time and typically gets a sharp improvement early on. So, yeah, those three wouldn't stun me. Anything else would be very, very surprising.
Yes. And just to kind of put the cherry on top of the Texans, that was the first team ever to win a division with a first-year QB and first-year coach.
Pretty specific, but yeah.
Yeah. AFC North last year, Eddie. Just to recap for those who don't remember, Ravens went 13-4, Browns went 11-6, Steelers went 10-7, don't know how. Bengals went 9-8. First time in 90 years that every team in a division finished above 500. And then this one is a cherry on top of the Carolina Panthers, who I think will continue to suck ass. The Panthers did not hold a single lead the entire NFL season.
That's crazy. I mean, if you went to a bookmaker and said, what odds could you give me that an NFL team is not going to hold a lead? I mean, one, it would have been an incredibly stressful 17 games. I guess for a lot of the games, it would have been not stressful after the first quarter, let's say. But just the chance that they didn't kick a field goal early on. I mean, you really have to question not only the playing, the decision-making that went into that outcome. That they must have turned down. It's impossible to imagine that they had no opening drive that got kind of close to field goal range, and they went, we'll go for it in 4th and 5. I mean, that's
I think the craziest stat of 2023.
That might never happen again. Like, you have to be so bad to pull that off.
Yeah. Not only do you have to be like, it's not only that you don't have to win a game. You know what I mean? Like, because at some point, like you're saying, maybe just when you start the game, you have an opening drive that gets a field goal. You could still lose that game by 30 points. But it's so much more than just having a winless season. It's having a winless season and never in any of those games even coming close to being competitive.
Yeah, and your opponent's not doing something dumb. Like you kick off to them and they have a fumble on their own 15-yard line, pick six, a terrible pick six. Like there's so many things that could happen to just hand you that lead. It's a pretty remarkable achievement.
And for the record, they did win 2 games this season too. They were both walk-off wins. And those are my 9.
For the 10th, then, I will come at you with a stat about a team that you had a couple stats relating to, the Houston Texans, more specifically relating to CJ Stroud last year. And not only will I give you the stat, but I'll give you the sort of quiz question that goes along with it. So
okay.
CJ Stroud led the NFL in passing yards per game and touchdown to interception ratio. So he had 273.9 yards per game, and his touchdown to interception ratio is 4.6. In the last 50 years, only 2 other qualifying players had such a season. Who were they? I'll say that they're both.
And what? So go ahead, explain the season to me again.
They're both Hall of Fame quarterbacks, so there's no like anomaly in this. They're both extremely famous. And
going to be Hall of Fame, or they're both already in the Hall of Fame?
One is in, and one is going to be.
Okay. Say it to me again. The stat now.
Or potentially just got in. I'll say he is retired. They are both retired players. Led the league in passing yards per game, and led the league in touchdown to interception ratio.
Okay. Peyton Manning?
Incorrect.
Oh, shit.
You got to remember, Peyton Manning, he had a disastrous rookie season, really. He threw a lot of interceptions.
Oh, this is just rookie season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
Otherwise, it would be a much longer list, right, of achieving both of those stats. So it's rookies.
Okay.
Rookie quarterbacks who've led the league.
Oof. That makes it really hard. They're both retired.
Oh, actually, I take this back. These were not rookies. I take that back completely. So I will adjust my statistic. These are not rookie quarterbacks.
Okay. I didn't think I thought he was the only rookie to ever do that because he set the rookie records. Okay. So
but it's still not Peyton Manning.
Okay. Tom Brady then.
Correct. Tom Brady in 2007. So that was the 18-1 season.
Okay. Is it Phillip Rivers, the other one?
No. I said Hall of Famer. Phillip Rivers, I don't, debatable, but I don't think is in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, boy. Drew Brees.
No.
That does going to be a good guess.
Slightly older, but it happened within our lifetimes.
Steve Young?
No, but right team.
Joe Montana.
Correct. Joe Montana in 1989 when the 49ers won the Super Bowl that season. So basically, what CJ Stroud pulled off, which then resulted in a round 1 playoff exit. The only other 2 quarterbacks who'd ever done it in history. One won the Super Bowl and the other had his only defeat in the Super Bowl. So there you go.
All right. There you go. That's a good one. That's crazy. That the company he's keeping.
Yeah, it's pretty elite. I mean, that's going to be the big question, right? And I suppose we'll get there. And if that's the division, I don't know which division you want to kick things off with, but the interesting thing will obviously be the sophomore slump, which is pretty typical to have. Even if CJ Stroud has a slight drop off, that's still incredible output from a young quarterback. But is there a potential there for him to have a significant drop off? And for the Texans, who going into last season were not expected to be good, are we getting them? Will they be closer to what we thought they were going to be last year, this year?
Well, let's start with the reigning Super Bowl champions and the
San Francisco
Kansas City
49ers.
Chiefs.
What happened in the
The
Super Bowl?
The AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I'll give you my trivia for you of the day, Eddie, and this is a tough trivia question here. The Kansas City Chiefs are going for the infamous three-peat. 8 franchises since 1968 have attempted to win 3 straight Super Bowls. 0 have ever succeeded. Can you name those 8 NFL teams? You don't have to give me the exact year, but if you can't just say like a team and have it be like,
okay.
So you got to give me like a little bit.
So the Patriots.
The 2005 New England Patriots lost.
That will be the only one of this century, right?
Yes. And the Patriots, for those who don't remember, they lost to the Denver Broncos that year.
The 90s would have the 49ers. Or late 80s.
The 90s would barely have the 49ers. In 1990, the 49ers lost to the New York Football Giants when Joe Montana got his ass handed to him on a blindside hit and got knocked out, and Steve Young came in, and then they lost the game.
The Cowboys in the 90s?
The Dallas Cowboys in 1994 were going for a three-peat and did not do so. That was the year that they fired Jimmy Johnson after he won back-to-back Super Bowls.
Is that it for the 90s?
And they lost in the NFC title game in that one. No, you're missing one.
The Green Bay Packers?
Nope.
Won 2 Super Bowls in the 90s.
This team did not even make the playoffs. They finished 6-10 on their way to a three-peat.
Well, so they must have beaten who beat the Bills twice? Is it one of in that period? Early 90s?
No, this is an AFC team.
So late 90s AFC team?
Think of very good quarterback who won as he was ending his career. He ended his career by winning the Super Bowl. And that's pretty much the reason why they did not get a three-peat. Brian Greasy replaced him.
Brian Greasy. I'm drawing a blank on this one.
John Elway and the Denver Broncos won back-to-back. So not bad so far, though. You've got the modern teams, let's call them.
The Steelers in the 70s with the Iron Curtain.
So the Steelers lost in 1976, and then they came back and won 2 more, but then lost in 1980 as well. So that is 2 different Pittsburgh Steelers teams. And you're missing only 2 more after that.
The tough one, like, I'm trying to think of Lombardi and the Packers. Is that pre-Super Bowl era that he would have had his period of dominance? I'll say Packers in like the 50s or 60s.
Yes, the Packers in 1968. So Vince Lombardi won back-to-back and then retired. Or I think he retired, yeah. And they did not win that following year.
So I'm missing one, which I'm guessing is also like 60s.
I'll give you the year, 1974. This team went for a three-peat and lost. They lost in the divisional round of the playoff to the Oakland Raiders.
So it's an AFC team. AFC team that won a couple Super Bowls in the 70s. And is it a team that I've already said? Like, is this a repeat? No.
Put you out of your misery. 1974 Miami Dolphins.
Oh, fuck.
Got the right division. So, the Kansas City Chiefs, can they hit the three-peat?
I mean, I think for me, it's a no. I'm surprised they pulled off the repeat, let alone the three-peat. I just think you look at they're asking a lot out of. I mean, I have no doubts about the quality of Mahomes and the benefit that they get out of having Mahomes and Andy Reid there, and the sort of solid foundation that gives them. And it is very reminiscent of what we started to see from Belichick and Brady, where like the system works, the quarterback knows what he's doing, and you can kind of plug and play a lot of the pieces around him, and they will produce more there than they will anywhere else. But like it's an aging Kelsey, and you already had question marks. I know they've cut Tony now, but like you had lots of question marks surrounding the wide receiver staff 12 months ago. You're still going to have those doubts over the course of this season too, I think. So I would just be surprised. I think they rode their luck in the playoffs as much as they could have done. It depends. Like, is it going to be a third year in a row where they don't have a single holding call against them in the Super Bowl? Like, can we?
Oh, here we go. We're not doing this.
If you start giving me those types of guarantees, then their odds significantly increase. But no, I'd be really surprised. I don't even, as I said, I don't think they'll be making a deep playoff run, let alone like they will not make the Super Bowl. I'll say it now. They are not making the Super Bowl.
God, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you continue to doubt this team? So, I mean, for me, I like I said, I think I'm picking them to win. I think this is getting to a point now where I will continue to pick on Mahomes and the Chiefs until I see something drastically different. You have Mahomes back, Kelsey back, Andy Reid back, Steve Spagnuolo back, and Chris Jones back, who are probably all one of the best, if not the best, at their coaching position. I mean, that's unheard of nowadays that you have that much talent that just continues to not leave a place. And I think they've gotten better with their receivers. I think getting rid of Tony, getting Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, you now have two potential deep threats that they did not have last year. So the whole trying to stop the Chiefs in those short and intermediate routes because they know they can't throw deep anymore might not be an option. When you have Hollywood Brown that can just run fade routes and Xavier Worthy before he gets broken in half, and their defense just continues to be good. They're like a top 5 defense still in the NFL. So I can't knock them and I won't. So for me, I think they're going to win the division. I guess we can just give our division 1 through 4, right? And then kind of walk through the teams if we want. So I have the Chiefs to win that division. I have the Chargers coming in second and the Broncos third and the Raiders fourth. And I actually have the Chargers penciled in as a wild card team. And then I'll jump into the Chargers and you can kind of jump into them. It's basically just Harbaugh. I mean, you don't have to love the guy, but you have to respect Harbaugh. 4 seasons as an NFL coach, 3 straight NFC title games when he was with the Niners. He's 44-19-1 when he was with the Niners, and that's the 5th highest win percentage in NFL history for a minimum of 50 games. And you have Herbert now, who has, at 25 years old, the most passing yards and completed passes for a quarterback in his first 3 seasons. So putting Harbaugh together with Herbert is going to be phenomenal. I understand they're not great in the depth chart. They've lost some options at offense, but I think they're going to run a slightly different offense. I think they're going to be more run first. Like Harbaugh loves to run the ball. You saw it at Michigan. You saw it with the Niners. And if he could take Kaepernick to a title game, there's no way he can't take Justin Herbert.
Well, he's offered Colin Kaepernick a job.
I know.
And Colin Kaepernick has seemingly turned it down on the premise that
because he still thinks he can start in the NFL.
He still wants
it's
to play.
Unbelievable. Eddie, he could be worse than you in what he believes he can do. And that's saying something because he was an NFL QB who made it to a Super Bowl. And I think he might be more delusional than you.
Who would be a better NFL quarterback tomorrow?
I don't know. Let's say this. I don't think either would be good. But yeah, so that's my call on the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I'm also expecting the Chargers. I'm not the biggest Herbert fan in the world, but I still think he's a talented quarterback. And this is going to be the big test for him because he's had a lot of excuses in the early part of his career surrounding poor coaching and a lack of weapons around him. This at least majorly addresses one of those factors. And so there's, in a sense, more pressure on him now, even though the team might be better, where he will be the focal point of the criticism if things start to go wrong. But yeah, you touched on it. Harbaugh, everywhere he goes for the first 3 or 4 seasons, just the way he motivates people clearly, he will get a response out of it. The question with him always is people grow tired of the way he motivates after a while, and then it's time for him to move on. He's not the kind of person who's going to be with the Chargers for the next 15 years. It just doesn't work with the way the intensity that he brings to the job. I think after a while, it is tough to deal with. And I think it's especially going to be tough to deal with if you don't deliver true success. Like even in the 49ers period, I think people sat through it for a while as they were building towards that Super Bowl. And then you don't get the Super Bowl and then the drop off. And then it's hard to deal with that intensity. Michigan, it would have been interesting to see had he hung around at Michigan. Yeah, you would have probably had a 1 or 2 year grace period, but eventually it would have worn old on people as well. I'd love, as much as I doubt the Chiefs, I would love to pick against them to win the division. I think it's difficult to make a compelling argument, even though they were only 11-6 last year. I can't see them being worse. They're going to be 10, 11 wins no matter what. Like that would be a fairly poor output from them, assuming, as with all of these predictions we're going to make, quarterback staying healthy. Because the only way you can really see,
of course.
No, I know, but you hear, sometimes you listen to some things or read some annoying things. It's like, well, they're only Dak Prescott away from being injured, from not being a good team. It's like, well, you could say that about every NFL team, basically. With the exception maybe being the San Francisco 49ers, where they might be able to see out Brock Purdy getting hurt. But I'll go with, I guess the same order as you. Chiefs first, Chargers second. I think with the Chargers as a wild card team. Broncos third, but not good. And Raiders bottom of the division and very, very bad.
Yeah, and I'll just note the Chargers. The Chiefs have the 8th easiest schedule in the NFL. I'll give a few of the schedule rankings, and they're all according to ESPN. But the Chiefs have a very easy schedule according to them. And then, really quickly for the Raiders and the Broncos, I don't have much. The Raiders, I'll give this one stat. Minshew has been in the league 6 years now, which is pretty crazy to think about Gardner Minshew being around for 6 years. He's 15-22 as a starter. So don't bank on the Minshew magic. It is not Fitz magic.
But it'll be fun. He's very likable, for sure. When you hear him interviewed and stuff, he's very likable. And he'll definitely, I think the frustrating thing, particularly if you're planning on betting on games, he doesn't scare me to bet against, but there's definitely, if you're throwing the team, the team for him to lose consistently once or twice over the course of the season, he's going to screw you with an annoyingly good game and then follow that up with an absolute stinker that's going to make you question why he couldn't have done it a week before. But that would be my only sort of cautionary tale for gamblers. But no, I think he's fun, but he's not.
Yeah, he is very likable. His Max Crosby thing with the little ass boy is still one of my favorite things to this day. He keeps calling me little ass boy. He's like a genuine kid. It's so funny. I mean, I'm little out there, but I'm not little everywhere. That's such a great quote. And then the Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to be very bad. It's a shame. I actually like Bo Nix. I think he's going to be a better QB than anything they've had in a very long time, but they are just not there yet. The stat I'll give that I thought was pretty amazing that I didn't put in my 9 stats, but the Broncos have missed the postseason for 8 straight seasons. They haven't made it since they won the Super Bowl. So that's the second longest streak currently in the league and is the longest ever for any team immediately after a Super Bowl win to not make the playoffs at 8 straight seasons.
If you're a Broncos fan, Is that an outcome you would have been happy with? Like if going into that season they'd said you're going to win the Super Bowl, but in exchange it's going to be a long playoff drought. Like the team is going to be very, very bad. Do you take it?
No, no, because if the caveat to that was I'd have to watch some of the worst quarterback play in the history of the NFL, then I'd be disappointed. If you told me like, hey, you're not going to make the playoffs, but you're going to have, I don't know, let's just say Phillip Rivers for 5 years, I'd be okay with it. But if you told me you're going to have like Drew Lock and all these shit quarterbacks you have to watch, no.
It's tough to have a very good quarterback though and not make this playoffs for 8 straight years. Like if you're saying you have a good quarterback within that time frame, you're probably scraping into the playoffs at some point. Like
Yeah.
if you go through 5 years without a playoff appearance, I'm not sure how good of a quarterback you are.
Okay, that's true. So I guess we'll continue the AFC and we'll do the AFC South. A lot of talk already in this podcast about the Texans. And that division obviously is the Texans, the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans. So I have it actually in that order: the Texans to win the division, and then the Colts, followed by the Jags, followed by the Titans. Just starting with the Texans, I think they're an extremely good team. There always is that sophomore slump worry with quarterbacks. I don't think that's going to happen with CJ Stroud. He is just surrounded by weapons. We talked about it last podcast. They could have the most explosive on paper offense this year with Joe Mixon. Tank Dell as your third wide receiver is pretty crazy. But finished 13th in scoring offense and 11th in scoring defense last year. So a well-rounded team. None of that will fall. If anything, I think their offense will get better. So I have them winning this division, and I think winning it pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty similarly about them as you. I don't know about winning it comfortably just because I do think both the Jags and the Colts present something of a challenge. I mean, I don't think either one of them are great teams, but it's still, that's 4 games. They're not going to win all 4 of those. They're obviously not going to win all of their out of division games. So it does become, I think in all likelihood, the division will still be up for grabs with a week or 2 left just because of the way that will work out. I will agree with you in terms of the order, except I'm flipping the Colts and the Jags. I think the Jags finish second, and I think the Jags will be a wild card team. I mean, a question mark for them. Wow. I know I just kind of addressed it, but it is injuries for them, which you can obviously say for every team, but with them, the thing that's held them back, Trevor Lawrence has had, a ton of injuries over the course of the last couple of seasons. Christian Kirk was injured for a chunk of last year. They've improved the weapons around Trevor Lawrence with Gabe Davis coming in. Brian Thomas Jr., the draft pick that they had, could be an interesting addition. So assuming that offense stays relatively healthy, then I think they'll be pretty good. So yeah, I have them running the Texans close, making the wild card, going out in the wild card round. That would be my full prediction for the Jags. But yeah, I think they'll be slightly better than the Colts.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Jags, and I think I'm tired of thinking they're going to be better than they are. I think I'm losing a lot of faith in Doug Peterson as a coach. I think the shine is starting to rust a little with how highly people think of him. Besides one great season with the Eagles, I haven't seen that much. Lawrence does have more weapons. Yeah, so I think you mentioned Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. They did lose Calvin Ridley, but with Kirk, Davis, and Thomas Jr., that should be pretty good. I can't get excited about the Jags. I don't know. And I agree. I think it's going to be close. I think the Jags and the Colts are going to be both kind of right there. But I just think Anthony Richardson, if he can stay healthy, will be pretty impressive. They got a good rookie wide receiver in the second round that will help. And then also you have, I just think more explosiveness in that offense. And the stat I have for the Colts is Richardson will still be the youngest starting quarterback in the league this year, even with all the draft picks. So we'll see. And rounding it out for the Titans, I pretty much have nothing to say about the Titans. Their offensive line is trash, and Will Levis is just going to be massacred back there. Will Levis's highlights are going to be his leaked videos from this offseason. That's the only good thing he's got going for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see too much going well for them. You're also dealing with a new head coach, right? So that's big question marks there to see how Brian Callahan sort of develops into a head coach. I mean, you've just said it's a loss for Calvin Ridley for the Jags. Obviously, an addition for the Titans. I don't know how good Calvin Ridley really is. It's one of those where obviously off the field issues have somewhat impacted his overall career, but also maybe not completely fulfilled the potential that he showed both in college and early on. Yeah, I don't know. My reason for definitely Anthony Richards, I think until we really see both what he is as an NFL player and also what he's like after his shoulder injury, I think it's predicting a lot of potential evolving into performance, and I think that's a little bit risky.
So with that, we'll go to the AFC North, and that is the Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, and the Browns. So you want to start this one off?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the toughest division in a sense to make any kind of bold predictions about, because you can make a compelling case. I know you'll be very dismissive
out of 3 or 4.
Yeah, you'll be very dismissive of the Steelers and Russell Wilson, but you can legitimately make some sort of a case for all 4 of these teams, and for three of them, you can make like Super Bowl arguments. Obviously none is favorites, but ones where you can make a somewhat strong argument for them. I think in terms of the only team, we know what we're going to get really out of the Ravens, because even though certain pieces around Lamar Jackson change from one season to the next, and the biggest change being at running back coming into this season with Henry, but fundamentally their regular season output is super consistent. So on the back of that, I will pick the Ravens to win the division, just because I feel like you have the fewest question marks about their team or reasons for causes for concern. After that, I will put the Bengals. You got Joe Burrow. Again, it's a little bit like the Trevor Lawrence conversation where, yes, you can say for every team, if the quarterback stays healthy, but they consistently have issues with Joe Burrow staying healthy, but they've seemingly addressed some of that offensive line problems that they've had this offseason. So hopefully he gets slightly better protection and as a result stays healthier. And then for the Browns, I'll put the Browns 3rd, Steelers 4th. I have the Browns, the Bengals, and obviously the Ravens all being playoff teams. And the Browns...
How many playoff teams you got? You're already over.
Am I? Okay, yeah, I got to knock one. I'll knock the Jag. I'll knock the... Yeah, it's true. I got too many wildcard teams for the AFC. I'll rethink that as the podcast goes on. But if I name every team in the playoffs, then I'm going to be right in some of them. But
no, actually, you're okay right now.
Because that's 4 playoffs. That's 4, right?
That would mean you don't have any coming from the AFC East, any wildcard teams.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Then you're okay right now.
And so the Browns, we know how good their defense is. That shone through over the course of last season. It's just like huge questions at quarterback. And will we ever see a version of that offense? Like every season you come into the season thinking like that offense could be so difficult to deal with if everything works, and then it never quite does. And you've got, a running back coming off a pretty gruesome injury for the 2nd time in his career. How will that impact what Chubb looks like this year? You have a quarterback who hasn't had really had a good season in 5 seasons. So yeah, a lot of doubts about what that offense will look like, but a good team. And then, I still think the Steelers, even though I've just picked 3 of the teams in the division to make the playoffs, I still think the Steelers will go 500 or better, but they will not be a playoff team.
Wait, so I just want to correct you here. There's only 3 wildcard teams per conference.
Yeah, so
And
I'm
you've
knocking
picked
the
the
Jags out.
Browns, the Bengals, the Jags, and the Chargers so far already. So you're already 1 over.
Yeah, I'm knocking the Jags out.
All right, your Jags are out. Okay,
Yeah.
surprising that you're this last division then, but
And
yeah.
the,
So I
and
have
the Chargers might get bumped as the podcast goes on, but we'll see.
So I have the Ravens winning this division. I have the Browns finishing second and making the wild card. I have the Bengals finishing third, the Steelers finishing fourth, and the Bengals I have not making the playoffs, but very close with the Chargers. Like I went back and forth 2 or 3 times with who do I think is going to make it. Now I'll start with the Ravens. They've rushed for more than 3,000 yards as a team twice in 2019 and 2020. They now have Derrick Henry, and one of the major things I saw pop up in all of the previews that I looked at and everything I heard on all their podcasts is that Lamar Jackson is reportedly lighter and faster. Like everyone made this comment about seeing him in training camp, and he looks significantly lighter and significantly faster. So they had the number 1 ranked NFL rushing in 3 of the last 5 years, including last season. I think that's going to get even bigger of a number this year. Like you said, I think we know what we're going to get with the Ravens. They're just going to pound the shit out of you. And then when you try and put 10 men up to stop it, they're going to go over the top and they're going to hit you. And they potentially have a very scary offense this year if both those players can stay healthy and just wear you down. I'll go with the Browns. I had second. They have a really tough schedule. They have the 8th hardest schedule, which is a worry for me. But their defense allowed the fewest yards in the NFL last year. Almost everyone is returning from that defense. I think they have 9 or 10 of their starters returning. And obviously, Myles Garrett is returning, and he's the Defensive Player of the Year. With that, I think with having a defense so good, their offense won't get worse. It can only get better, but how much better it will get is exactly what you said. Depends on Deshaun Watson, and I am concerned about that, but I will give him this last year. I just think for someone who used to be so good, it would just would blow my mind that there isn't just a little bit left there. I mean, if Joe Flacco can make a run with them, then Deshaun Watson can still do it. And then on the other side, the Bengals, I again went back and forth whether they could be second or whether they could even make the playoffs as finishing third. They have a very easy schedule, seventh easiest in the league. But I'm still worried about Burrow being protected. 148 sacks since being drafted. That is a disaster number. They've selected Mims with the 18th pick this year for their O tackle. So if he comes out of the gate as a great O tackle, that could be a huge improvement for the Bengals. But in the past few years, it seems like O tackles need a year to get used to the league. Andrew Thomas with the Giants is a great example. His first year was a disaster. Like people were calling for his head. And now in year 2, I think he was like a first or second team all pro. So it takes a little while as an O tackle, I think, to get adjusted to the speed and the power. So that could be rough for Burrow. So that's going to be a great division. I think it's going to be fun to watch those 3 teams battle it out. The Steelers, let's just fucking forget about the Steelers once and for all here. So here's the stat. I am so sick of them always finishing above 500. Oh my God, Mike Tomlin is so amazing. Always above 500. They've been above 500 and they've made the playoffs 7 of those 10 years. Out of those last 10 years that they've been above 500, they're 3-7 in the playoffs, and they're 0 for their last 4 in playoff games. So I don't give a shit how good you are in the regular season because your team just sucks, and it sucks when it matters. They are not good, and they will not be good this year. And they are definitely not winning a playoff game because they won't even make it. But the only encouraging stat I've had for the Steelers is TJ Watt is 18 sacks away from tying his brother in sacks in the Watt family. So you could see TJ Watt surpass JJ Watt in total sacks this year.
Well, that's something for you to pay attention, I guess, to from the Steelers. One reason for you to watch Steelers games. Interesting, you've
Yeah,
mentioned
there's
strength of schedule like a handful of times, right? And it got me thinking about how much of an impact does strength of schedule have on a team's uh, output. And obviously, one of the big issues with strength of schedule is it's entirely reliant on the team's performance the previous year. So you can have a situation like, say, last year going into the season, the Texans appearing on your schedule would have definitely
yep.
lessened your strength of schedule. And as it turns out, that was a really tough game. Looking into statistical analysis of strength of schedule, and is it a useful sort of statistic for predicting season performance? It basically, the conclusion it comes to, which is both not useful in addressing the question or in applying the statistic, is if you're good, strength of schedule doesn't matter. And if you're bad, strength of schedule also doesn't matter because you'll just be bad. So there's a lot of, I could break down they've put a lot of effort into like the model they've used to test the strength of schedule. But the fundamental conclusion is for good teams, it doesn't matter at all. For bad teams, it doesn't matter either because you'll just be bad. But then how are you assessing whether or not the schedule itself is having an impact becomes a bit tougher.
And then we'll go to the last division. That's the AFC East, and that's the Dolphins, the Jets, the Bills, and the Pats. What team would you like to talk about first here? Well, let's rule out the Pats. I don't think we even really need to discuss them. I think Drake May could be anything, and I don't think he's the Week 1 starter. I think Jacoby Brissett is still the Week 1, but I'm sure we'll see Drake May, and we'll see what they are. But I think we both don't have the Patriots doing much of anything.
No, they're not one of my 19 teams in the wild card. So
okay, good. We can rule them out of the wild card. You've ruled one out.
Yeah. The Chargers.
Right, so which one do you want to talk about first here?
Reassessing my predictions too. The Chargers are out. That was a brief stint in the playoffs they had. The Chargers are out. Let's start with the Miami Dolphins.
Okay. What do you think of the Miami Dolphins?
I have the Dolphins winning this division.
Okay.
I think, again, I know having said stop talking about injuries with quarterbacks, assuming Tua stays healthy, has none of the concussion issues that have, impacted him over the last season or two.
Stayed healthy last year.
Yeah, aside from the concussion issue. He did remember he had definitely was concussed, led to a pretty bad performance in the second half of that game in, what was that? That was the game in Germany against the Chiefs, right? Where he kind of I think so. Didn't really know, appeared to not really know what he was doing. But then afterwards, it definitely wasn't a concussion. But then they also were worried about his concussions still again. I just think they have so many offensive weapons that they can afford for, what you're going to get with Tyreek Hill in terms of the yards and the touchdowns and just the scary plays you'll make over the course of the season. I think there's no weapon as terrifying as him. To the prospect that you could have the Dolphins completely shut down for 3 quarters and them not really moving the ball. And then they could easily have 2 80-yard touchdown receptions to Tyreek Hill. And the complexion of the game can completely change. And a lot of teams don't have that type of threat. So I just think with the quality of the offensive weapons that they have, and then you with Jalen Phillips, you got a potential for their defense improving. Yeah, I think this is a really tough division. You could, again, a little bit similar to the division before. You can make compelling cases for all but the Patriots, but yeah, I think the Dolphins will be the best team.
Yeah, so I have the Dolphins finishing second, but making with a wild card. Tua led the NFL in passing yards. Tyreek Hill led in receiving yards, and Mostert led in rushing touchdowns. So that's a pretty elite trio. And then you're also adding in Waddle and A-Chain. So that's unstoppable offense. They actually rank second in EPA per play in 2023. I don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. I think they're good. Their defense still a little worries me. And I will be the annoying person who says, I'm still a little concerned of how they play in cold weather. And you're going to have to play the Bills and you're going to have to play the Jets more likely than not in cold weather. And you might find a playoff game in cold weather. So that is a concern for me.
I do think they're one of the teams. I think it is a slight concern with just the style of play that they have. And if they want to be serious Super Bowl challengers, like it doesn't matter for the Chiefs, right, if they have home field or not. I don't think it matters for the 49ers if they have home field or not. I don't think you would even though the Bills have never made the Super Bowl, I don't actually think it matters for the Bills. Like you can tell me the Bills are playing a playoff game on the road and that doesn't really significantly change. Obviously, they could have a big home field advantage given the environment that they could be in at home, but it doesn't worry me to think that the Bills would be on the road. I think the Dolphins, they need to place an even greater emphasis on trying to secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs because they need it. Because yeah, you can get away with some road games and road wins in September, October into November, but the prospect of playing like in Buffalo or Kansas City in January, they need to be playing in Miami if they're going to make the Super Bowl. And spoiler alert, I have the Miami Dolphins making the Super Bowl. So they are my AFC winners. So wow. I have them securing the number 1 seed, home field through the playoffs, and making it to the Super Bowl.
You're a big Mike McDaniels lover.
Yeah, he's having his glow up, Now he's got his new style. It's hard to not be wowed by him.
Well, I have the Bills still finishing top in this division. I know that this is a much different team than last year. So no Stephon Diggs, no Gabe Davis, no Jordan Poyer, no Micah Hyde. And then Matt Milano is now injured for, I think, a significant chunk of the season. I just can't bet against Josh Allen and the Bills and a team that just consistently wins and finds ways to win. I mean, last year, everyone thought they were down and out, and then they won, 6 out of their last 7 games or something like that to make the playoffs and to make a somewhat decent run into the playoffs. I mean, they lost against the Chiefs, but that was a close loss there in the playoffs. So I'm tired of betting against teams that just have the pedigree and the history. So I think the Bills will be there.
Yeah, you've touched on their regular season output. They've won 58 games over the last 5 seasons, which is tied for the most with the 2017-2021 New Orleans Saints for the most wins in a 5-year span without winning a Super Bowl. So they have that to be proud of. But yeah, I think the Bills will be good. I do still have certain doubts about Josh Allen's decision-making in key moments. He does have a tendency to throw into double or triple coverage at times where it's like, just don't turn the ball over. And there's a kind of hero mode that like a switch that goes off in his head. And it's part of what makes him great. So, you got to take the good with the bad sometimes in analyzing that. And I think it's frustrating. A lot of these quarterbacks will get criticized when it doesn't work. And then when they pull it off, it's like no one else could have done that. It's like, well, yeah, but the risk associated with doing it means sometimes it's going to fail. But
well, we said earlier in the podcast, most turnovers by any QB in the last 2 seasons. So
yeah, so I have the Bills. They've just bumped out. Breaking news: they bumped the Chargers out of the wild card. So I do have them making the playoffs, but yeah, I think they'll be maybe 2 wins worse off when compared with the Dolphins in the division.
And then third, I have the Jets, and I have them not making the playoffs. I am not on the Jets train. I know there are a lot of people right now who, one of our favorite podcasters included, who continue to say they went 7-10 without any type of quarterback. In fact, a quarterback who's now 3rd string on another team. And now that you have Aaron Rodgers back, how can they not be better? How are they not better? 1, because they're the Jets and they consistently find ways to lose. 2, because I don't know how much I trust Aaron Rodgers, a guy who hasn't had a good season in 4 years. And more importantly than that, is 40 years old, coming off of a year-ending injury that required a year of recovery. It's not like he just had a bad season or played 6 or 7 games and then had some shoulder injury that had to come back from. This was like almost a career-ending injury, at age 40 on a team that he's never played for. So I don't like those odds. I saw all this stuff about how he's looked great in preseason and he took more snaps in preseason practice than any other season. I don't care. Let's see him on a game at 40 years old on the field. Don't buy it. And then the other thing is I am not a big Salah fan. I've watched enough games where he's made terrible decisions as a head coach, like whether it's time management, reviews, play calls, having like just not saying no to Zach Wilson. Like I just don't trust him as a head coach. So I'm not very high on the Jets. I think they are a maybe 500 level team, but they are not the 12-4 team everyone thinks they are.
Yeah, no, I think we have kind of similar thoughts. I don't have as many concerns about Aaron Rodgers. Part of it, I suppose, is as I get closer to 40, my perception of how hard would it be for a nearly 40-year-old quarterback to, I can't have my sort of slightly delusional expectations over what I could achieve without thinking that Aaron Rodgers could come back from an Achilles injury. But I think I agree with you on the Robert Saleh concern. Although I will agree a little bit with what Bill Simmons has said in his previews, which is, I guess, if you have Aaron Rodgers fully involved, maybe that he takes some of the decision-making responsibilities away from Saleh. He can focus on his sort of defensive strength instead. So maybe they fix that just through Rodgers being healthy and in all of those games. The issue for me is that even if you get we spoke about it last season, right? That easy thing of like, well, they won 7 games last year. And we kept doing let's look through their schedule and which games would they have won with Aaron Rodgers. And the reality is, I don't know. They snuck out that win in the game that Aaron Rodgers got injured in, which they probably wouldn't have won had Aaron Rodgers not got hurt. So you had this weird outcome from the first game anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I think you still have concerns about what both their offensive and defensive line are going to be like. And I think that could lead to, issues throughout the season, particularly their defensive line. And yeah, I just can't see them being, people expecting them to be 6 or 7 games wins better. It's a huge improvement, even with Aaron Rodgers being involved.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, right? And I'll get to another example when we get to the NFC. But I dislike when you do this like season in 3 words. Like they were 7-10. Oh yeah, they were 7-10. They weren't that bad last year. But it's like that is such a tiny viewpoint of that season. Because when you look at their 7 wins, like you said, they pulled off that win week 1 against the Bills somehow. Their other wins are against the Broncos, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Giants. Like those are not good wins. Yes, they had a good win against the Eagles. I don't know how they won that game. And they had a good win against the Texans. But like a lot of those wins are not good wins. Like, oh my God, they beat the fucking Giants and the Patriots and the Commanders. Wow. They actually were pretty good. No, they weren't. They were not a good team. Like, don't oversell it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, I'll put them in a category where they could prove us wrong, because obviously there are enough areas where they could improve and where you could also see a drop off. Like this could be a really bad season for the Bills. If you play this season 20 times,
yeah,
there is a scenario like a couple of times where the Bills have a little bit of a nightmare with Josh Allen making mistakes and having lost Diggs and not really having maybe quite the same strength of weapons around him. You could see a scenario where the Bills, don't have, are suddenly a 8 or 9 win team, and it's the Jets that are taking the most advantage of that drop off. But I want to see it first, and then I'll believe it. And then going into next year, maybe I'm high on the Jets, but until I see it, I'll reserve judgment.
So now let's swing into the NFC, and we'll stay in the same area, and let's do NFC East, which I think at the top is an interesting argument. So you obviously the NFC East, the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Commanders. So I'll just say I have the Cowboys winning, the Eagles second with a wild card, the Giants third, and the Commanders fourth.
Same for me. I think, like looking back on last year, we spoke throughout the season about how the Cowboys had kind of made a mess of a couple key games, including that game against the Eagles, where they really should have won in November and somehow managed to lose. And I don't have the same level. Like Dak Prescott, to me, I have no doubts about him in terms of regular season output. The question is, like, in a crunch moment in the playoffs, does he come through? And they also are just stacked when it comes to weapons on both sides of the ball. So I think they're the most balanced team in this division. And they're the team in the division that I have the fewest question marks around. There is a big question with the Eagles of how the impact of losing Kelsey will affect them in terms of their line adjustments, which are so crucial in terms of the style of game that they have. But yeah, I think the Cowboys are going to be. I not only have them winning the division, I think they'll make the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and just like how throughout that season we kind of went through the schedule and questioned how the Cowboys were losing some of those games. I mean, week by week we did the opposite with the Eagles and said, they're getting lucky to win games and eventually it's going to unravel, and it kind of did a little bit. And I think their season was definitely overinflated in terms of what kind of team they actually were versus what their record was, and I don't know how much better that gets. I mean, you have Kellen Moore now as the offensive coordinator. They signed Saquon Barkley, which healthy on paper is great, but are we going to get a healthy Saquon Barkley? You haven't had it in 4 seasons, so I don't know if we ever will. And he is getting older, and running backs are now getting faster and younger, and like I don't know how great of a signing that is. I mean, it could prove wrong. He could lead the NFL in rush yards if he's healthy, but I just don't see it. I think I don't know. I think the Eagles will make the playoffs. I just think we're going to see a little more kind of back to reality with their record, and I think the Cowboys will beat them both times. But interestingly, the Eagles, the stat I have here is they're the first team in NFL history to begin a season with a quarterback who had 10 scrimmage TDs, a running back who had 10 scrimmage TDs in Barkley, and 2 1,000-yard receivers in the previous season with Smith and Brown. So they have a ton of talent on that offense. But like you said, Kelsey was huge on that line, not just because and I get it, people are knocking it because he's a center and how important is a center, but it was more than that. He was like the team captain. He was calling the blocking schemes and everything like that. That's a huge loss. Like there are times where it wasn't even Hurts that was calling audibles or like blocking schemes. It was actually Kelsey calling them at the line. So that's a huge person to lose. You're not just losing a very good center who is a good blocker. You're losing someone who is running that offense to an extent. So that is definitely gonna hurt for them. So we'll have to see. I mean, they are very talented on both sides of the ball with players, but whether they can put it together, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you on the Kelsey point. They are a team of all the teams in the NFL where you feel like losing the experience of making all of those adjustments at the offensive line. Which team could it hurt the most? And it's the team that runs the type of scheme that they do. So that's a lot of pressure being put elsewhere to kind of fill that void. The center, the kind of output from a pure center position, probably not that tough to replace. But yeah, the leadership quality and the game reading ability, that's different. The other thing, kind of touching on what you said about the drop off in the second half of the season, how both of us thought they were a little bit fraudulent in terms of how good they looked in the first half. I find it weird heading into this season. I guess it's because the NFL offseason is so long. It's like people have forgotten just how bad they were in those final few weeks. And now it's just like, oh, they've hit the reset button now. Like they're going to be back to what they were at the beginning of the season or the season before. It's like, why? What have they done to fix all of those issues that they clearly had in the second half of the season? That not only, the conclusion both of us came to over the course of last year was good teams are certainly not afraid of them anymore. Like good teams know how to beat the Eagles. I think that will still be the case this year. So that's what causes concern for me within a division that has good teams in it. But then also, I think bad teams will be able to take example from how good teams are beating them and do the same. So, yeah, I think this won't be a very great Eagles season.
Yeah. And then quickly, just to touch on Giants and the Commanders. So I'll start with the Commanders. This is a season I don't expect much from them, but I think this could be a turning point in their franchise, in a relatively new Commanders franchise, mainly because of Jaden Daniels. I am much higher on Caleb Williams than Jaden Daniels. I watched him for a few years at ASU. He has some great ability to throw a deep ball, but he has some great ability to completely fucking blow up on a play and cause a disaster. But since 2020, the Commanders ranked 30th in total QBR, threw the most interceptions, allowed the second most sacks, and started 8 different quarterbacks. So I think if you're a Commanders fan, you have to be pretty excited about the potential of getting a franchise quarterback here.
Yeah, no, agreed. Could make a huge difference.
And then the Giants, I think they are going to be slightly better than people predict. Most predictions are in the the bottom 5 of all teams in the NFL. I don't think they're going to be that bad. Their line is much better than it was last year. Malik Neighbors is a star at wide receiver, and I think a healthy Daniel Jones isn't that bad. I don't expect them to be a playoff team, but I think they could be close to being a 500 team again this year if their line can hold up and let up a lot less sacks. But I have one stat for the Giants, and this is a direct stat right to my dad, who will watch Giant games and scream at the television that they need to start fucking blitzing and sending people because they never blitz. The New York Giants last year had the second highest blitz rate in the entire NFL. 44% of their defensive snaps, they were blitzing someone, but they still only finished with 34 sacks, which tied for 28th in the NFL. And the last time they had 2 players with double-digit sacks was 2010. So going on 15 years now. So I don't think it's the blitzing. I think they haven't had good defensive linemen. And this year, now they finally do, with the addition of Brian Burns to a few very talented young players with Dexter Lawrence and Thibodeau. So I think that could be a first year you could see double-digit sacks for multiple players on the Giants.
Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to be as bad as some people think. And I agree with you. I think Daniel Jones gets I don't think the contract situation is a tough one because you just feel like, quarterbacks get paid obscene sums of money nowadays, even to be fairly mediocre. And like, what do? Do you just give up on your quarterback and then draft another one and probably find yourself in exactly the same situation, but you set back your sort of progress by 2 or 3 years? I don't think Justin Herbert's that much better than Daniel Jones, for example. I think it's a good example.
That is a terrible take.
I think it's a good example.
That is a terrible take.
I think it's a good example of how important the image you establish for yourself in the first season or 2 in the league is to how you're judged in the future. And, obviously I would trade Daniel Jones for Justin Herbert, but I wouldn't feel like I was having a remarkable improvement at the quarterback position that was going to completely change what the future of my franchise looked like.
Oh my God. The level of disrespect you have for Justin Herbert is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I could go through the comparison of their statistics. I could have, and you could cherry pick because I'm looking at them right now. You could cherry pick. I wanted to do the, QB1 is who and QB2 is who. And, you thought that one was Justin Herbert. Turns out it's Daniel Jones. It's a little bit hard to do with a lot of their stats.
It's not even close.
Well, similar number of interceptions. Herbert 42, Daniel Jones 40. That actually surprises me.
Yeah, but how many games played?
Herbert 62, Daniel Jones 60. So
Okay.
two more games, 2 more interceptions. So basically,
There you go.
identical
Okay.
interception rate across the two
What about
quarterbacks.
fumbles?
I don't actually have fumbles as on the list of statistics here, so I couldn't tell you. Completion percentage, not radically different. 66.6 for Justin Herbert, 64.3 for Daniel Jones. So like not a huge difference. Now there's a big difference in terms of yards and passing touchdowns. But then
Yes, there is.
conversely, Daniel Jones, much more of a dual threat quarterback than Justin Herbert is. So, puts him to shame when it comes to what he does on the ground, except for rushing touchdowns, where amazingly Justin Herbert has 11 and Daniel Jones only has 13, and that's
So just to
surprising.
throw the fumbles, Justin Herbert has 21 fumbles in his career. Daniel Jones has 46 fumbles.
Close.
Okay.
It's close.
Okay. So we want to do total turnovers. It's a little different.
It's close. No, as I said, it was. I was.
But I will agree with you. I do think. I mean, for someone who watches every Daniel Jones games he plays, he is not as bad as people want him to be. He is surrounded by absolutely nothing at times. I mean, he has like fourth string tackles starting sometimes. So he has made the most of his career as best as he could. But obviously, this is a make or break season for him. If he does not show improvement with a better offensive line, better receivers, he could be done.
But I'll say this: if you swapped the quarterback positions for these two teams, neither of them are still playoff teams. Let me put it that way. After I bumped the Chargers out mid-podcast.
So just to clarify, though, do you have the Eagles making the playoffs, finishing second in the division?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. I have them finishing in the wild card. Okay, so next division, we will do NFC South, and that is the Bucks, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers. They call this the barn burner of the NFL divisions. Will any of these teams make the playoffs, Eddie?
It would be interesting if you removed the guarantee for the division winner. It would be interesting to see. I'm just going to pick it's the boring pick, right? I'm just going to pick the Falcons to win the division. They were pretty good last season, and you have to assume that Kirk Cousins coming in, it kind of, not only is he definitely an improvement for them at the quarterback position, he also sort of suits the style of play that they had anyway, which is an offense that blows a little hot and cold, and from one game to the other can either look kind of good and then the next game look terrible. And they're just getting an improved version of that exact same thing with Kirk Cousins. And you do have a decent amount of talent around him from an offensive perspective. So yeah, I have the Falcons winning the division. And aside from that, I almost don't think there's much worth talking about within it.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrible.
I mean, I have the Falcons winning the division. Let this be maybe a sad statement on the state of the Atlanta Falcons. They sold out their season tickets before training camp for the first time in 2 decades. And that's just with the arrival of Kirk Cousins. The stat I had that was pretty interesting is their offensive line was ranked top 5 in the NFL last season by PFF with their grades. So a surprisingly good O-line. Kirk Cousins is a big improvement, probably the best they've had since Matt Ryan was actually doing well several years ago. You have Bijan Robinson, who could be in for a huge second season. They just signed traded for Matthew Judon, which I think is a big addition to their defense with Justin Simmons. I think they'll win the division. It's pretty crazy. The Bucks have won the division 3 years in a row now, and they pretty much return all of their players, but I just don't think they're very good. Like, they won the division last year, and that division wasn't anything. And I think at this point, the Falcons have just gotten better, and the Bucks have stayed the same. So I don't think they're going to win the fourth. And yeah, the Saints, who knows? Derek Carr, I don't think is terrible. And, they have Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. They have talent. I can't buy into the Saints.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, this is a very watchable division. in the sense that I think there'll be a lot of close and kind of interesting games, even if they're not necessarily the best played games out there. Touching on one statistic relating to what you said about the Falcons and their season ticket sales, I did see the other day, it was a stat that I wanted to find an opportunity to put in, and I guess this is as good as it's going to get. The White Sox played a doubleheader last week.
I saw this.
You saw this, and only had 98 people across the two games. It's remarkable. What I loved best too was like people actually sat in their assigned seats. Like, you gotta.
I don't get why people do that. I don't understand it.
Go and choose the better seat at that point. And if you're working at the stadium and you're telling people not to, then you've got real issues.
All right, so let's move away from this division and go to the NFC North, which I think is going to be a very exciting division. And that is the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions. I just want to start off here before I give my predictions. One of the other most popular opinions I heard or stats or just phrases people were saying is that the Packers are going to be so great this year, and how great of a second half of a season the Packers had last year. They stunned the NFL. They were red hot in the second half of the season. Like, they were phenomenal. They're going to drive that second half right into this season. It wasn't that great of a second half of a season when you go back and break it down. They lost. So this is their second half of their season from last year. They lost to the Steelers. They then beat the Chargers. They beat the Lions, and they beat the Chiefs. And that is impressive. I will give them, maybe not the Chargers. They're a 500 level team, but they beat the Lions and the Chiefs back-to-back weeks. That is impressive. They then lost to the Giants and lost to the Bucks. That is not impressive. And then they beat the Panthers, the Vikings, and the Bears, three of the worst teams in the NFL to close out the season. Like, that is not a red hot second half of the season. That is someone who played decently and made the most of a schedule. Like, you cannot tell me a team that loses to the Giants and the Bucks had a red hot second half and ending out by beating the Panthers and the Bears. Like, that's when people take a larger statement and aren't looking more deeply into it. So I think the Packers are good. I think they're being very inflated by people remembering what they want from that second half and by a decent playoff run.
So I do somewhat agree with you. I don't think they were quite as good as people are making out. Like, you hear people speak about them and it's as if they were almost the best team in the NFL over that run. And they were good. They went from a sort of bad team into a good team, around that Thanksgiving period. In terms of this division, I'm going to kind of go against to what you just said there slightly. I have the Packers winning the division. So
wow.
I think they will. I'm a bit of a Jordan Love believer. I think he's the best quarterback in that division right now. That might change in the next year or two, but I think he's the best there. And I just think that their offense is going to be pretty tough to handle this year. And I'm expecting a little bit of a drop off from the Lions, not for any particular reason. Like, I'm not going to bring up good statistics or players that they lost. This is much more of just a gut feeling that I can't believe that Jared Goff is just going to be part of a Lions team that's just good for years upon years. Like, there's a moment in time here where I just think Jared Goff will go back to kind of being Jared Goff, which is, he's on the cusp of being good, basically. And so, I have the Packers winning the division. I have the Lions finishing second, but making the playoffs. They are my first, right? That's my first NFC wildcard team. And then the Bears, and then the Vikings. And I have the Vikings being pretty awful this year, but probably fun to watch. The Bears, they're the team in terms of making these predictions where you feel like you have the most potential variability in terms of what they could actually look like but there's too many question marks when it comes to a rookie quarterback, and also people just penciling in a rookie wide receiver.
A Wookiee's playing?
That would probably help.
Is this the first Wookiee to start in the NFL?
He would be a pretty dominant running back or tight end. Like,
Oh, I was thinking D end. Who's gonna stop him
like
off
pass
the edge?
rusher would be tough.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God,
I mean,
that Wookiee coming at you.
In fairness, I'd play him both sides of the ball. I wouldn't even think twice.
Imagine having him mic'd up.
That's pretty good. That was a pretty good Wookiee.
Thank you.
It's 2 podcasts in a row where you've done pretty good impressions. But yeah, no, I think rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver, where, there's just an expectation that they will be not elite, but kind of like approaching top tier right out of the gates. It's a bold prediction for me. So yeah, I have the Bears being good, but missing out on the playoffs, being 1 or 2 games out of the wild card.
Yeah, so we are very different here. So I have the Lions winning this division. Amazing offense last year. We discussed it, how they had, with the amount of touchdowns, 4 different players with 10 or more touchdowns. All of them are returning. Goff, I know you don't like Goff, but maybe Goff is good. I think he's a good QB, and I think he's got a ton of talent around him. 7 Pro Bowlers coming back. Amon-Ra St. Brown probably will have another great year. Penei Sewell at O-tackle has been a force. So I think their offense is great. Their defense isn't as good as people think it is. I think when they see Dan Campbell, they just think he has a great defense, but it was okay. But they've added some additions, so I think they'll be better. I think the Lions will win that division. I have finishing second, the Chicago Bears, mostly because I am in on the Caleb Williams hype. I just think that offense, having Caleb Williams come in to an offense with multiple weapons around him, is going to be pretty impressive. Their offensive line actually isn't that bad. It's not as bad as like when Burrow went to the Bengals and everyone knew he was just going to get destroyed. Their O-line is actually pretty decent, so I think he'll have some time to throw and to scramble and do what he does. They have the 3rd easiest schedule in the league, and after Montez Sweat, they got that trade for Montez Sweat in week 9. The Bears were 5th in EPA per play on defense. So, and they have returned everyone on their defense. So I think their defense is sneaky good. So combine that with an offense that could be a little hit or miss, but I think for the most part will have more positive plays than meltdown plays. I think they sneak into the playoffs. Crazy stat I have here about the Bears. The Bears have never had a player with 30 passing touchdowns or 4,000 passing yards in a season, ever. To put this into context, 4 players had 30 touchdown passes last year, and 10 had over 4,000 yards just last year, and they have never had a quarterback do either of those in a season.
Yeah, the 4,000-yard one's also surprising because you would have thought, like, in those Jay Cutler seasons, for example, where, they weren't great, but their offense was pretty sort of efficient for the most part. Like, they had big games with Jay Cutler. It does obviously make sense to a degree because it's a fairly recent occurrence. Like, you're not having a good quarterback from 1965 throwing for 4,000. But, yeah, it's kind of crazy. It will, you have to assume, be ended soon. Yeah.
And I have the Bears making a wild card and the Packers not making a wild card. Although that is, again, they were the team that was first out for me for the wild card was the Packers. And maybe I'm proven terribly wrong when the Bears have 3 wins this season and the Packers dominate, but we'll see. And then that leads us to our last division, the NFC West. Some used to call it the NFC Best, but now I call it the NFC Less.
It's not quite as good as it was a couple of years ago. We had previews where we were speaking about 4 potential playoff teams coming out of the NFC West and the toughest division in football. It's getting better. It had 1 or 2 down years there, and it's definitely improving, but no, not quite the force that it once was. Unsurprisingly, I've picked the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. I have them winning this division. I think the strong argument for why is this is pretty much the same version of their team that we saw last year, so it's difficult to see why there would be a drop-off, injuries aside. a little bit of a question mark. You still, dealing with a contract situation with Trent Williams. So that's not ideal. And with Trent Williams, you have the possibility that he just retires. It's not like most players in this type of scenario where all he wants really is more guaranteed money. And if not, he might just walk away from football. So there's a possibility that you could have a big hole to fill at left tackle at some point. But having resolved the Ayuk situation, they got tons of weapons in terms of wide receiver, running back, tight end. So even if you're the biggest Brock Purdy doubter, it's just hard to not see their offense in that system working really, really well. Their defense is definitely significantly improved in the secondary, which has been a weakness for the 49ers for like 10 years. And now they're actually starting to have a secondary that looks pretty competitive. So I think you'd see a slight defensive improvement and offensively more of the same, assuming no injuries. People like to make a big deal out of the McCaffrey calf injury that he had that kept him out of preseason. But even he said, if these are regular season games, I'd be playing. It's just preseason doesn't matter. And I also
said he got married. He's just trying to. He's got that. Honeymoon hangover.
But sometimes I think, and this isn't just McCaffrey. People are like, "Oh, he's not playing many reps in preseason." It's like if you're an experienced NFL player in the same system, you kind of know what's going to be expected of you and what you're going to have to do. Why would you want to put more strain on your body, particularly at the kind of running back position, and just take extra hits that don't help you to do anything? I mean, yes, get up to speed slightly, but I'm sure he knows how to do that without having to have, 100 carries in preseason.
So I'm with you on the Niners. I think they're going to win this division. Potentially, with Trent Williams and everything, they could return all 11 starters on offense. That's insane, considering they were number one in offense in points per game, efficiency, and EPA last year. And you now have Brock Purdy with a full offseason of reps and warm-ups with the team and everything like that, because last year, obviously, he was still hurt during the offseason. The only worry is statistics, and that's the fact that only 3 teams have ever won the Super Bowl the season after losing it, and that's the 2018 Patriots, the 72 Dolphins, and the 71 Cowboys. And more recently, 0 of the last 5 Super Bowl losers even reached the title game next season, and that is the Eagles, the Bengals, the Chiefs, and the Rams, and the Niners.
Yeah, in all sports, those types of the hangover statistics never really concern me too much, right? And it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. A lot of the time it can be explained from the fact that you lose players, that it leads to contract situations and you can't keep the same group together. In the Niners case, they've managed to keep the same group together. It can be argued that they're keeping their starters together at the expense of more depth, strength and depth across their actual squad. And, that was one of the arguments for getting rid of Ayuk, was that it could free up some cap space that could be used to, yes, losing out on in terms of quality at wide receiver, but maybe strengthening the overall squad through that additional cap space. But no, I feel pretty confident that there's lots of reasons to doubt either Kyle Shanahan or Brock Purdy in crunch moments in very big playoff games. I don't think there's any reason to doubt them in terms of regular season output.
Yeah. And then I have the Rams finishing second and getting a wild card. This is the one I go back and forth on with the Packers. I just think that offense looked pretty good last year towards the second half of the season. Stafford was pretty lights out the last 6-7 weeks of the season. You return Cooper Kupp, hopefully healthy. The major concern for me with the Rams is Aaron Donald. We've talked several years about how important is Aaron Donald, considering he's a defensive player and how much of an impact does that make. We're going to find out this year because that team for the most part is pretty similar besides Aaron Donald being gone. So we'll have to see how much of an impact that truly is. And I think it will impact them, but I think they're a good enough team that they'll make the playoffs, mostly because I think they're going to beat the Seahawks and the Cards both games. So that's 4 wins right there. So those two I have making the playoffs, and then I have the Seahawks finishing third. New coach, the Ravens defensive coordinator McDonald. I don't see them making the playoffs, but maybe in a few years. And then the Cards. The Cards could be good. You have Murray coming back, like a full year and a half now after that ACL injury. And then you have Harrison Jr., Connor at running back, and McBride at tight end. I don't know. It's tough to get excited for a team that just seems to constantly get injured. And by week 7, they're starting like their 9th string of something or other. So I just don't, the consistency is an issue for me. So I have the Cards finishing last here.
Yeah, I've got the same order as you. I think same concerns when it comes to the Rams in terms of the impact that the Aaron Donald loss could have on a defense that was so built around the threat that he posed and the fact that teams had to double team him pretty much every down. That's a big shift in terms of what offenses now have to plan for coming up against you. So I expect a drop off there, but they have, again, Cooper Kupp being healthy, then that's an improvement. I don't think Puka Nacua can have quite the same season he had last year, but he'll still be very good, and they'll still be very good even without that. When it comes to, so I have them finishing second and being a wild card team. I guess where I disagree with you, I have the Seahawks finishing third, and I have them as my final NFC wild card team. So I expect them to be better defensively this season. And when you look at their offense, it's a decent number of offensive weapons surrounding Geno Smith. And Smith is a decent NFL starter. So I think they'll be able to obviously beat the Cardinals twice and, kind of have a middle of the pack schedule in terms of how hard it is. So I think they'll have
Seahawks over Eagles for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have the Seahawks getting to 10 wins.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a relatively close, even though I think the Niners I feel confident in them winning division. I think it will be a close division just because I think those 3 teams are going to be quite good. So I don't see the Niners winning 13, 14 games, for example. So I have the Niners winning 12. But yeah, I think the Seahawks get to 10, at least 9, probably 10 when I kind of run through their schedule, and potentially finish second, but I think finish third and get a wild card.
So then with that, what do you have as your AFC and NFC championship games?
So NFC, I think I've already, I didn't make my other pick. Did I? But yeah, obviously I've got I have my Super Bowl matchup as the Niners against the Dolphins. So I obviously have them both in their respective NFC and AFC wildcard games. In the AFC, I'm going to have it be Dolphins-Bills. That's my prediction in the AFC Championship game. And NFC Championship game is a little bit tougher for me to feel confident on. But I'm going to go with Cowboys, like I said earlier, against the Niners.
Okay. So I've got Chiefs-Texans in the AFC and Lions-Niners in the NFC. And then I have the Chiefs over the Lions in the Super Bowl.
I'm going to go. Here's my really bold prediction. I don't think either of the teams you have making the Super Bowl will win a playoff game.
Wow. That is a bold prediction.
Yeah. It's pretty much as bold as I can get in terms of kind of responding to that prediction. And by that, I don't mean it's I don't think your prediction is, stupid, because they're obviously, you can make strong cases for both of those teams. The Lions were not far away from making it last year, and the Chiefs are, returning champions with the best quarterback in the league. But yeah, I don't think I've got both of them losing round 1.
I can't find that on Bet365.
It's a pretty specific. I'll make a bet.
It's not that specific to win a playoff game. Isn't that specific? And it'd actually be a pretty interesting one. I wonder what the odds would be for the Chiefs to not win a playoff game.
I'll for next episode, I will get that available as a market.
So I guess mine would be, this isn't that bold, but the Packers to not make the playoffs. I think bold in the sense that the majority of people have the Packers making the playoffs this year, and I have them not. And that's like 3-2 right now, which isn't bold in the sense of odds, but I think just bold going against the grain with everyone else. But with that, Eddie, we can quickly kind of do a little bit of some futures. One I think it's interesting to do is MVP, but let's do MVP if you remove anyone that is 10-1 or lower to win. So that would remove Patrick Mahomes, who's 5-1 or plus 500 for our American listeners, Josh Allen at 8-1, Joe Burrow at 9-1, and CJ Stroud at 9-1. So if we remove those four from the market, you now have Jalen Hurts at 12-1, Jordan Love at 14-1, Lamar Jackson at 16-1, Herbert at 16-1, Purdy at 16-1, Dak at 16-1, Goff 18, Rodgers 20-1, Tua 25-1, Stafford 28, Lawrence 28, and then we'll say Barr from there. What do you like out of those?
So there's three I like, and I will say not only do I like them just because I think there's value, one of them wins the MVP. So I think you can bet on all three of these, and one of them is going to win the MVP.
And you guarantee one of them will win.
And you will make money. Equal stakes across the three, you will make money. And those three are Brock Purdy. The logic there being, I'm not suddenly expecting Brock Purdy to be a quarterback, like a radically different quarterback to what he is. But I think the Niners, win the division, have a good season, and you're going to put yourself in the MVP discussion as he was last year, even without doing anything necessarily individually extraordinary. And he might be helped by McCaffrey not having quite as good of a season as he had. Part of what hurt Brock Purdy in that MVP debate was McCaffrey's incredible touchdown run that continued until I went to watch the Niners in person. So as I probably won't attend any Niners games this season, maybe I can't put the jinx on McCaffrey, but I think without that McCaffrey buzz, Purdy's case is a little bit stronger.
So real quick, while we're talking about Brock Purdy, I just want to throw in two non-quarterbacks, the closest two non-quarterbacks, and that is who you said, Christian McCaffrey at 50-1 and Tyreek Hill at 75-1.
Tyreek Hill one, it just doesn't make sense to me because anything Tyreek Hill does contributes to Tua's output. That's the thing about the running back with McCaffrey.
Unless Tua gets hurt.
But is that McCaffrey can carry the Niners without having to rely on Purdy, whereas Tyreek Hill, if he has a 4-touchdown, 250-yard game, well, that still means that Tua's got 4 touchdown passes and 250 yards as well. So Dak Prescott is going to be the other one of the triumvirate that I'll throw in. I think that the Cowboys are going to have a good season, win that division. I think statistically, offensively, be excellent. So I actually like Dak Prescott a lot from an MVP perspective, more than Purdy. And then the final one, similar to that Tyreek Hill discussion, I think Tua. Just because they're going to be so explosive and they're going to have so many highlight plays that, people, the big plays and the exciting, like, can you believe he did this is undoubtedly a contributor to the MVP buzz. So I'm going to put, I think as I have the Dolphins winning that division, I'm putting Tua at, what was that, 25-1 in the discussion.
Yeah, so I agree with you with Tua. I think there's a lot of value there at 25-1 for a guy who has so much talent around him. I like that, especially at 25-1. I really like Lamar Jackson at 16-1 on a team that will probably win that division and could be a very high seed going into the playoffs. He's going to put up some pretty high run numbers, which will then open up the passing game. So I think at 16-1, he's won the MVP before as well. Keep that in mind. It shouldn't make a difference, but sometimes it kind of does make a difference in voters' minds. And then I actually like Christian McCaffrey at 50-1. I think the Niners are going to be a really good team if he stays healthy. I'm not a Brock Purdy believer, but I'm not super high on Brock Purdy. And I think the Niners are great because Christian McCaffrey is great, and they have an offense that runs through him. So I think he could put up some insane stats from a both receiving and running side that could potentially put him up there if he has a career year. And at 50-1, I think there is some value there.
I guess the reason, my counter to the McCaffrey idea is how much better could his season be this year than last year? And he didn't win the MVP last year.
But he was close. He was in the talk.
He
and
was
then
in
he
the
kind of
talk.
had like 2 bad weeks. And
Well, he had
bad,
one week.
Quote.
He had 1 week where he didn't score a touchdown. And
Yeah.
that kind of ended it. Like, as long as it was like, hey, look, if he scores a touchdown every week of the regular season, then that is going to really put him there. But still, he's going to have, I don't think he can have a better season than he did last year, and he didn't win the MVP. So you need him to definitely replicate what he did last year, if not be slightly better. And you then need quarterbacks to kind of all get in their own way. And that's the tough thing. And that's the reason why I don't love it.
And that's also with us, not talking about all the top players we just mentioned that we ruled out, which you can never, I don't think, ever fully rule out Patrick Mahomes for an MVP season.
Or Lamar, right? I mean, that he'll probably have a crazy statistical season. So I think Lamar Jackson probably deserves to be favorite, just because we see how he can dominate MVP voting when he's as a dual threat quarterback, what he can do over the course of a regular season. So I think Lamar should probably be favored for that.
Any other props or stats you want to give a look at?
I think so. Passing yard leader, Tua would really tempt me. He's 9-1. He's like joint 4th favorite. And again, like, that's part of the just expecting the Dolphins to be good and the way that offense works. I think that could be an interesting bet there. Aside from that, I don't really have any that stand out to me where I would be like comfortable actually putting my money down on them. There's obviously ones you can highlight.
So I'll just regular season passing leaders. Mahomes is 5-1, Stroud 6-1, Prescott 7-1, Goff 9-1, Tua 9-1. So he's 4th or 5th favorite there. And then if you wanted to ride the McCaffrey train, regular season rushing and receiving leaders, McCaffrey is plus 350 or 7-2. And then Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley are right behind him. And Bijan Robinson is 10-1. I kind of like that as McCaffrey to be total yards from scrimmage at 7-2.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you think he has any chance in the MVP discussion, then you kind of have to like that. Like, the argument would be, if you think that if you're even remotely tempted to bet on him to win the MVP, then you basically should be betting on him in all of the other individual statistical categories that he is sort of an option for.
All right. So with that, do you have anything else?
Don't think so. That's pretty much it.
All right. We'll call it a wrap then on our NFL season preview, and look forward to a good start to the season with a nice Thursday night game.
Yeah.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.